everybody, and welcome to Movieflex Double Features, the podcast where your hosts flex their knowledge or lack thereof of a pair of movies. One of those hosts, S. Stebbs, here with your other host, Matt, aka Hi.
Yo, I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, just that's exactly how I'm doing. Just all over the place, man. Like I went back to the movies this week and this weekend, and it hadn't been forever. I'd been to see Batman or whatever, and I saw Jackass right before that. But yeah, like the whole time there's this guy sitting behind me. I'm 99% sure he had COVID because like literally every 10 seconds, like an alarm clock, he would like either like start coughing or clearing his throat, and just like at one point he sounded like he was dying and he was like hacking up a lung, and it was so fucking frustrating because I went to see the Northman, which like so there's some parts of that movie that get very, very quiet, and God, it would just like there it would be like one of those moments where like the sound cuts out and it cuts to black, and then like before the next scene starts, I would just hear and it was like, shut the fuck up. Like I was just so frustrated, man. Was not very fun.
One of the few films that characters say their names multiple times and you still at the end of the movie have no clue what their names are.
When I realized what his name was, I'm not gonna lie, that was a big like eye roll moment for me. Cause like
you're like, all right.
Well, because the movie it's Hamlet with Vikings, right? Which like that makes sense to me. That sounds like something like an idea I would have read out of like a screenwriting book. Like not in a bad way. I mean that as in like it's very high concept. It's very hooky. Like you have everything there that you need to know. But then his name is literally Hamlet, but like with the H at the end. Like literally, it's exactly it's literally if you got the word Hamlet and took the H and put it at the end, that's his name, Amleth. And I was like,
yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man.
It's based off of, I think it's based off of some Viking thing. Like, I'm not 100% sure. But, like, that's what I read.
Like, yeah, I mean, I thought, I was like, okay, it's probably, like, named after something, and there's all this. But at the end of the day, if you're like, look, if I'm making Hamlet and the guy's name is basically Hamlet, maybe change the name, Just because when I realized what was going on, I'm like, okay. Like, because it's a guy, like, his dad dies, his uncle marries his mother,
See, I walked out of the movie not knowing any of their names, and then I had to look it up later because they're like, they have their Viking accents, so.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm part Viking, so no, I'm not actually. I'm 0% Viking. But I did, I knew his name was Amleth, and I knew Holga and Mjolnir.
There you go.
That just might be because I played God of War. I played one of them. Maybe that's why.
The Norse one, the one Norse one. Yeah. Do you want to start? Because this pod was my choices this week. Mm-hmm. We were wanting to talk about for SEO purposes, but also because I was very genuinely curious what you thought of them, and I wanted to revisit them myself. We basically did the entire filmography of Robert Egers, because he's only made 2 films before the Northman. So do you want to talk about his 2 films, and then maybe we can talk about the Northman a little bit too within this pod, or do you just want to talk about the 2 films that I chose for this week?
Oh yeah, no, we'll talk about. I mean, for the podcast, I'll put that it's the 2 films, but we'll just when it comes out, we can just talk about the Northman. Because honestly, the problems that I had with that kind of developed as it was the last thing that I watched, and so like
perfect.
Yeah, so like basically, all right, I'll just say it now because let's get started. Let's just dive into the movies because like you said, we basically have 3 movies to talk about this week. So first up, like you said, Robert Eggers week. That's the theme. I'll let you talk a little bit more about like why you chose him. But yeah, let's just get started. 2015, The Witch, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, a black goat, some pretty scary trees. Made for $4 million, made $40 million, huge box office success. And and I think that's kind of a part of the story, unfortunately. Like, as much as the guy coughing affected the way I saw the movie, my theater was kind of packed, so I thought maybe it would make some money this weekend. But yeah, unfortunately, the Northman did not do well at the box office, which kind of colors the way we're going to talk about his movies, I think, because yeah, it's just like, I know some people just hate talking about shit like that, but unfortunately, like, it is extremely relevant because like there are like realistic consequences and stuff, and unfortunately, especially like in our hyper like capitalized society, like box office is like a huge indicator of like whether you're gonna like what kind of movies you're gonna make in the future or whatever. But yeah, let's just get started with The Witch. Tell us why you, like I said, tell us why you wanted to go into Robert Eggers, what you kind of thought about the movie, and then I'll tell you what I've been thinking.
Okay. Yes. So basically, I chose Robert Eggers because he's one of the few filmmakers that as a film fan, as a person who enjoys films, I've been able to obviously follow his career trajectory from release date, from his first feature until now. And since he's got The Northman coming out, I thought it'd be a great time to revisit. I remember seeing The Witch in theaters with my buddy who is a horror fan. He said one of his favorite movies. So he's kind of like how I used to be until I kind of solidified my favorite movie. He's very much he has a favorite movie, and then but his kind of like rotate out. He's like, so depending on how I'm feeling, this is my favorite movie, And one of his favorite movies is The Witch. And when I saw it with him and with a couple other buddies, I agreed. I was like, this is awesome. So The Witch kind of kicks off this thing, which is like what they call elevated horror. It's Robert Eggers along with Ari Aster with Hereditary. It's this more like heady.
And I would also throw Jordan Peele in there with Get Out about the same time.
Yeah, so it's this more heady, more artsy horror film. And the thing that I always say about like horrors and comedies for me has always been they're good movies. Like they're great. Obviously, they're bad horrors and comedies, but the good ones are like really good. They're good movies first, and then horror movies second. And the same thing with comedies, But all that being said, yeah, the reason I chose it is because The Witch was one of my favorite movies when it came out. It's definitely top 10. It was definitely top 20 films for me. And then I rewatched it, for the pod. And I do have to say that kind of moved it up in my rankings. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did again, and I watched it. It's the only film that I like on this podcast that I took notes about through the special features. I watched all the special features on the 4K I had. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say, just kind of off the bat, yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. It's definitely probably my favorite horror movie I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Part of that is it's a very tone heavy movie. It's very dependent on tone. There's not a lot of scares in it, obviously. Ending's pretty great. It's pretty shocking. Performances are good. Direction's fantastic, right? But one of the things I really like is like Robert Eggers is one of these filmmakers who's like very meticulous, especially with regards to The Witch.
Yeah, well, he started out as a production designer.
Yes, and he directed a lot of So there was that rumor, and we talked about last week, of Robert Eggers wanting to do Nosferatu.
Yeah,
and I found out that when he was in school, he actually directed this is why he wants to direct a movie of Nosferatu. He directed a theater production of Nosferatu at his school. And he's very meticulous with regards to that. Like you said, he's a production, he's kind of like worked in different avenues of film and theater, performing. He went to school for acting, and then just kind of went more into the production and directing just side of things. But he's very meticulous on The Witch, so much so that during the special features that I was watching, there was two professors of history who were invited to a screening, and they said that most of the time when they watch period pieces, they point out things like they were talking about the Daniel Day-Lewis Crucible film. And they were like, well, those are those are pre-cut wood, like you could buy at Home Depot, essentially for the log cabin that you see for 5 seconds. So they pick apart that type of thing, and they were like, we can't pick apart literally anything in The Witch because it's all period accurate. The accents are period accurate. The way that the characters act and react to things are period accurate. And also Egers has this great quote where he talks about how he came up with the story of the witch, where he's describing he was like looking at historical counts of witchcraft, but also like his whole thing was like, all right, but what if they were real? Like, what if these historical accounts, like what people thought witches were, because like at that time the witches were real to people. They were an actual thing, they weren't just like evil green ladies riding brooms. They were like a real threat to Puritan society. So they he decided, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and make this movie where it is real. And I have a lot of quotes, but I'm going to go ahead and just rate the movie, and then I'll read off some quotes and explain kind of why I like the movie after. I want to hear your opinion though, but I give the movie 5 stars. It's one of my favorite, definitely top 10. I think I moved it up to 7 or something in my films of all time. But yeah, what did you think of The Witch?
Yeah, so okay, first off, let me start by saying that out of all the movies, this was my favorite. Out of all of his movies, all 3 of the ones that I watched, those are all his movies, but this was my favorite. I would say before I maybe had it at a 4, and it moved up to like a 4.5 for me. Basically, I'll just say this now: like his movies, there's like, and this I didn't realize this until after, but essentially like starts out with like a 4.5, and then Lighthouse is like a 4, and then Northman's kind of like a 3.5. Like it's like a steady decline, and that's not like to say it's a bad thing, because like with Scorsese, I had the exact same range of 3.5 to 4.5. It's the only that we did 2 movies of his, and he also happens to have been around for like a lot longer. Yeah, my thing, and like I love Robert Egers. There's an episode of the A24 podcast with him and Ari Aster where they're like just talking about their craft and shooting the shit, and it's really good. And they make all of the right references, and they talk about how much they love Bergman, and like I think they're very cool guys. Like they will definitely get an invite to the group chat. But I didn't want to just come on and say like, oh, I struggled with like an angle to like approach his work, and then I very early like I came to this question of like are his movies more than the sum of their parts, right? And that's kind of, and I don't know how to answer that yet. Like maybe you can help me out, but like what I mean by that, and again, I'm trying to be critical because I don't want to just like say like, oh yeah, he's one of the only guys making non-franchise Disney movies, so he automatically gets a pass. I've done that a lot where I've overrated stuff because it's there's so much bad shit out there. But like with him, it's like his movies are all very, extremely well researched, very well designed, well directed, great visuals, great tone, great ambiance, great performances. But like ultimately, like what does it add up to, and like what is it in service of, like. And that's the thing, is like I didn't really have that problem with The Witch, right? Because it very much makes sense to me. It feels very layered. It feels like there's a lot of ideas, but ultimately they kind of connect. Like I like the idea of like the witch, the Puritans bringing with them the witch, like because they brought with them their religion, right? So that means they also brought with them their superstitions, and so it's like the Witch of the Woods is something that like they've created because it is an American folklore, but it's iconic because America was just being born at the time. I don't even know. I mean, this probably takes place pre-colonial, so like it's how can you call it an American folktale when there is no America, right? It's kind of ironic. And
Well, it's they're
and,
colonial. They're established. They have a colony set up in Salem, right? Like that's where
I meant pre-revolutionary. Sorry.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a New England tale. It doesn't necessarily say it's an American tale because that's the period of time where they're in New England right now. They're not in Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts yet. So
yeah, but it's ironic because New England, America, whatever. It's like it is like it is a new colony at the time, and like the term folk like implies like something ancient, right? Something that's been around for a long time, and it's like these people just got to this country, so it's like very new. Like I said, I like that. But then as his movies went on, I just like with the Lighthouse more, I felt like the witch feels like tapped into something. It feels like it, like the whole like David Lynch thing of like tapping into like a greater like consciousness and like something that permeates the air of like society, something that like like the witch makes sense, right? It's like, oh, it's this woman who's been demonized by her family and they kind of literally turn her into a witch. That's the similarity I was drawing. It's like this family literally turns this girl into a witch, but at the same time it's like this society literally brought the witches with them because like again, this is their religion and stuff. So like I said, I feel like with the witch, he's like at his most like focused and stuff, whereas with like the Lighthouse, I feel like his approach was more like, I'm gonna give you all of these like obscure, like kind of mysterious like ideas and like visuals and stuff, and I'm not gonna like put a message in there because I'm gonna let you take like it's whatever you take away, right? Because he wants to be ambiguous, and like there's certainly one approach to it, but I like the approach more of where it's like there feels like I don't know, like I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been really nervous because I don't want to come across as a hater and stuff, but it just being spending so much time with his work and stuff, I really had to ask myself this, like, does it add up to anything? You know what I mean? Like, is it more than just like cool parts? Like,
yeah,
like I said, with the witch, it felt like it felt with maybe the Northman too. Like I said, the Northman, I might change my mind because I did have a very bad theater experience. But generally, like I said, I like, and he's a very young filmmaker. He'll have like he's not like he hasn't been around for decades like Scorsese, so he'll have like 30 years to like explore. And I think he's starting off from such a great place. Like he's so much better at it at the beginning of his career than so many other people were. So I don't want to come across as like that. I don't think he's good because I love him. I think he's great, and he's like one of my favorite guys. Ari Aster, I would feel a similar way about, but he straight up won me over with Midsommar. I love that movie. Like I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And like I said, that and The Witch, maybe the whole female protagonist aspect plays into it, where it feels like tapped into something where as like I said, as his movies went on, I was more like he seems to be searching for it, Yeah,
I think like just because it was interesting because before we recorded, you said like this is going to be our most Siskel and Ebert episode, but like I think actually we're more close than you thought we were with regards to this. Now with The Witch, though, I think I gotta. I don't know. I think it's one of the forerunners of like new genre type, right? Where everyone kind of took the wrong lessons from it, right? This one and then I remember also at the time Black Coat's Daughter was two that were A24, like the distributor was really tapping into this kind of thing, especially with like Ari Aster and like you said, all that stuff. But then Blumhouse kind of got on later. But The Witch, I think, is kind of brilliant because like it's his most, and this is like gonna sound like corny and whatever, but I think it holds true. I think the reason that you probably feel different about The Lighthouse and The Northman than you do with The Witch is because The Witch is definitely his most spiritual film, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a question. Like the entire film is like a question of faith both ways, right? Faith or lack thereof. Um, it's definitely, there's a lot of things at play in The Witch that kind of does make sense. Like it's not just, you know, a pretty production, right? Like the
Yeah.
production ties into the ambiance and ties into like the general feeling of the movie. The setting too like it's crazy. It's, you know, the ambiance in that woods. It's just got the the shot of like them going into the dark woods, and then it's playing that creepy like music. And he talks about how a lot of the music and stuff he wanted to feel natural kind of to the setting. And there's a lot of like
Yeah.
at play here. There's, you know, nature versus man losing against nature. There's different themes. There's a lot of it. And what I kind of picked up, especially this time and the first time, what I think makes the movie so special is that um it is essentially like this woman who is um pushed into this role because she's pushed out of this other role, right? Especially like the very rigid roles that she had at the time. You know, there's the you know, her becoming mature means, you know, that they're suspecting her of foul play because she's a woman in this society. And there's a lot of like this sounds so pretentious, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I want to sound pretentious really quick. But there's a lot of like primordial um, storytelling
Hmm.
aspects at work, especially with the fact that like it seems at the end when Anya Taylor-Joy becomes a witch, that was the only conclusion, and it was almost like again, very pretentious here. It's almost like an Oedipal thing where it's like she is they're trying to prevent, you know, that they're trying to be godly, but by trying to be godly they're being ungodly. They're very prideful, they're very suspicious, they're very aggressive, and you know, they push her into being a witch. I think,
Yeah.
like, you know, and that's maybe why The Witch resonates more like with you and more with me. And like I agree, it's definitely my favorite of his films. I think
Hmm.
it's just like it's one, like I said, it's one of my favorite films. I think it's his perfect film. Um, and like I always say, like as a kind of a joke, like you'll be chasing that high the rest of your life. You know, like you come out the gate like hitting a home run. You're expected to hit home runs every time. I've liked all of his movies. Spoiler alert for the rest of the pod, but yeah, he definitely taps into something very, very, like I said, primordial. I think would be a good way of saying it. Very,
Yeah, it is. It's very primal. Like it is like old school. It is like yeah, and like I said, yeah, like I agree. Like it's like a 4.5, maybe a 5 for me. Like it is. I would put it in my top 5 favorite horror films of all time. Not, I don't even know what else I would have in there. I just want to leave room in case I think of something. But yeah, like you said, like the Lighthouse is, it's also full of ideas and stuff and imagery, but like it feels less like tied together than the witch, because like with the witch it's like you said, her journey from like powerless to powerful, and this thing about like free will and like taking control, like, you know, she literally like had to kill her family.
oh well,
She,
she only kills the mother, and what's incredible about that is that
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
and what's incredible about that is the mother makes her, because the mother's trying to kill her, and
exactly, yeah.
you know, she stabs her, and then she goes and sits down, and kind of like it's a great scene where she sits down and she falls asleep because she's, you know, grieved that she had to kill her mother and that her entire family's dead. When she sits down and like passes out, you know, she wakes back up. It's nighttime. She goes out and she's like, well, time to go become a witch, you know, because she's made that transition from, you know, day to night. But what's fascinating about the ending especially is that she really does trade. Um, she trades one very like rigid belief system for a less rigid belief system in, you know, in becoming a witch, right? It's very, you know, it is the yin and yang. Like she is in this dichotomy, this role that she's forced into, and it seems like she has to pick one or the other. So why not pick the one where you can get naked and like hover in the woods? You know?
Yeah, well, like, because her dad tells her that, like, at the very least, they're gonna be either they're heading back into town and she's gonna like be put on trial and killed, or she's uh gonna like, yeah, even if she doesn't choose to sign the Book of Satan or whatever, at the very least, she's gonna be a woman in the 1600s on her own or whatever,
Yeah.
uh, not like like not very good chances of survival. So like you said, it feels like the only decision that she could have made, right?
Yeah, and
It feels inevitable.
And she has this. I have to say, like, I was like, "Damn, this is awesome!" It was the entire movie. I was like, "This is awesome. This is amazing." But both like that's what I'm saying. Like when I first saw it in theaters, I actually liked it more this time, which was shocking to me, because I knew it was one of my favorite movies. But then it like elevated it in my eyes, and I go, "That's solidified. That's definitely one of my favorites." Because there's this scene where she's talking to her father, and I was like, this is incredible because he's so all of the characters in it that are religious, right, which are the only characters in it basically are the family.
Yeah.
And all the hyper religious, because the twins are kids, they're not hyper religious, obviously. The only like good religious one is Caleb, right, the brother of Thomaston. And but the rest of them are like, the dad's hypocritical. He even talks about it like
That sucks. Dad's the worst one. The dad's the whole reason why all of this shit happens,
well, he lies, and he talks about him protecting his family, but like in all actuality, he's prideful. He's upset at the church, so that's why he leaves. He steals. He does so many different sins. It's crazy. And then
who knows why. I don't think they totally explain like why he gets kicked out in the first place.
Well, so he gets kicked out because from my understanding of the film, at least like the filmic language is kind of that he is prideful. He very much believes that he knows better than the church. The church is like, you need to calm it down. Basically,
yeah, I assumed it. I assumed it was like being heretical or something, but they don't.
Yeah,
they don't say it specifically.
They don't even really kick him out. They don't even like necessarily exile him. They're not like, they're banished, right? He's like, no, he's like, screw this, screw you guys, I'm leaving. He kind of is the one that's the final nail in the coffin. But yeah, there's that scene where she's like, you can't hunt, you can't fish, you can't trap. It's just like, you're fucking useless except for cutting wood, which is awesome.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, dude. Because it's true. Because like that's so fun. Yeah, because when he tries to shoot at the rabbit and the gun like just like explodes in his face.
It's so good. Yeah, it's a great movie. Before we move on completely, I do have some quotes from the special features that.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so these are incredible. So there's two special features on the 4K. There is an interview with the cast, right? And then there's a Q&A with Robert Egers and Anya Taylor-Joy that was actually in Salem when they premiered the film. And it was moderated by two history professors of the Salem witch trials, which I found pretty interesting. So this is it's a mixture of the two. It's from first one's from the Q&A, or not the Q&A, the interview. So this was like on set, they interviewed the actors, they were in costume. So this is 18-year-old like Anya Taylor-Joy at the time. First, by the way, The Witch is her first feature film.
Insane
role. Yeah, it's crazy. She said, again, this is her being 18, so I can't hold her too much on it, but I thought this is a really funny quote. I don't care that it's not politically correct or whatever to believe in witches and magic, but I 100% believe it. I believe that's real.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
I love I don't believe that. I don't care if it's 100% politically correct. She rolls her eyes and does quotation marks too, by the way.
That's awesome.
So this is from Robert Egers. So it's really weird because her name's Anya Taylor-Joy, right? But he calls her Anya in these interviews. So he says, Anya is a person who doesn't look like they belong in Puritan society, and that's perfect. That's Thomaston. So that's part of the ethereal quality that he was talking about.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he was like, that's the reason I cast her in my movies is because like I don't know if she belongs, and he was saying that like she doesn't belong in Puritan society, so that's like why I cast her. You know,
She's a
which
blonde
was great.
Latina lady, dude. She's yeah, no, she she definitely wouldn't. She's like I don't know, like I grew up like we would watch like you know, we would go to like eat Mexican food on Sunday. We're Mexican, but we would go to like a certain restaurant on Sunday, and they would be playing like Mexican TV. So I'd watch it like every Sunday morning, and it would be all of these like blonde Latinas, like
Yeah.
just like all of these women who, and they spoke perfect Spanish and had like 5 names and stuff. But that's who I always think of when I see Anya Taylor Joy, because you know she has that like bleach blonde like Marilyn Monroe hair, but like you know I can tell she's a Latina. She talks about it, you know. She's that and she yeah, absolutely 100% would not doesn't I don't even think a person like her existed in Puritan society at the time.
Yeah, so that's a great pull quote from the director. This one's awesome, and I'll tell you the context between it. But I quoted it down like this: "They're goats. I mean, they're goats." Anya Taylor Joy. So they were talking about Robert Eggers was talking about how difficult it was to film the goats because he's like, you can't direct goats. The kids were like, he's like, well, we had to keep because like all the goat scenes with Black Phillip and stuff, a lot of it was filmed with the children actors. So he was like, well, part of the thing was like we kind of had to like keep a safe distance away because like sometimes the goat would chase the kids when we
Yeah.
wanted the kids to chase the goats. And he's like, we basically like filmed the goats a bunch and kind of hoped that we would be able to put it together, you
Yeah.
know. So
Did
he's
a
like,
great job.
they wouldn't do what I wanted them to do, and he's like, he's like, I don't know if I'll ever direct goats again. And then of
No,
course,
man.
like Anya comes in with their goats. I mean, they're goats. And this one's from um, Kate Dickie. She's in Game of Thrones, but she's
Yeah,
also in
yeah.
she's the mother, right? I don't remember the mother's name, but she says, "I keep forgetting this is Robert's first feature. It's written so well, and he knows all the answers to every question that we could have." So in that, she kind of also goes into more um, that when she's like never worked with a first time director
Mhm.
who was as knowledgeable about both the characters and the way like she said he basically knew what he wanted from them and like could explain it to them perfectly the one time, and she was very shocked. You know, that's when she says that I keep forgetting this is Robert's first feature. It's written so well and he knows all the answers to every question we have, which is pretty high praise
Yeah.
from and also like the very last thing is I all basically all the cast besides which even Anya Taylor Joy, she's like she grew up in England partially, so like all of the cast of this movie is English and Scottish,
Yeah.
and um, through the features that I was watching the Q&A, they said that he nailed the because I was like that's kind of a weird accents they're doing, right? Because they're none of them are doing their like native accent, you know. Like I mean, Caleb's like you know he's a kid actor, so he kind of slips in and out sometimes, but like
Yeah.
he's like you know on the feature he's like oh what you did you know I'm Scottish or whatever, and then like
What, man? Yeah, no, he's like he's great. He's a wonderful actor. Like his whole death scene is amazing. I was really impressed by even the kids. Both of the kids are very fucked up and
so
creepy.
so Egers talks about it too. This is the last thing I'll say before we move on to the Lighthouse. But Egers talks about it too, and he says that similar to the goats, the kids were. He's like, it's pretty hard to direct kids because they're kids.
Yeah,
He's like, they
who
did
was
a
it?
great
Was it
job.
I mean, there's a famous quote. I think it's W.C. Fields maybe, or it's either him or D.W. Griffith. The quote is like, "Never direct children and animals." Those are
Yeah,
like, and I like I in anything that I've ever written, I've never included an animal or a child because I totally believe like I made a very long short film with my dog, just because I had nothing to lose. And yeah, I mean, you're lucky if you capture magical moments, but I couldn't imagine trying to do like a narrative feature, like and trying to wrangle animals, wrangle children, getting it because they have such they've only been on the earth for like 4 years. They only
Yeah.
remember like
Well,
one of them maybe.
yeah, and he kind of explains that, like, he's like, well, he said the thing is, like, he's like, the way that you direct them, which was, I thought this was fascinating. He was like, he's like, look at me, to like one of the kids, and he was like, do this. And he's like, breathe really fast. He's like, and then I'll
Yeah.
film it. And he says, all right, now. And then he does that, right? And he's like, oh, that's him being afraid, because you can't really be like, you're scared. He's not going to,
Yeah,
most,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
most, most child actors aren't going to be like, yeah, gotcha, boss, I'm on it.
Oh, let me tap in, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was it. That was The Witch. That's all the quotes I have, the fun little quotes I have.
Sick,
I
yeah.
have to say, final thoughts though. I said, like I said, rated 5. It's number 7 film. It went from, I think, from like 9 or 10 to 7 on this
Yeah,
year.
I should say I keep an ongoing list of like my favorite movies. It's a little bit. It's at like over 300 at this point. Like anytime I see a movie or remember a movie that I'm like, oh man, it stayed with me, and I want to revisit it one day. I make sure to put it on this list. And The Witch and The Lighthouse are both on this list.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, I like, again, I love Egers. Like I want, like, I'm a supporter and stuff. I want to be hypercritical because, like, again, he is someone that I hold to a high standard. Like, because I know that he knows good movies, he knows good filmmaking. He is a great filmmaker, and I think I don't also, like, I don't want to be guilty of like holding him to like his first movie for the rest of his life. Like, I understand he's gonna grow and like evolve and stuff, and I hope he does.
Yeah.
I hope he has like plenty of time in the future to like develop and like I said, I feel like he tapped into something on The Witch that he's kind of searching for in the other two films. But ultimately I think we pretty much, we're not far off. Like I said, it's definitely, like, I'd put it like top 3, top 5 favorite horror films. Like, I would put it up there with like any Argento I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely,
Stuff like that.
it's definitely my favorite horror film. I'll just go ahead and say that it's my favorite horror film, followed very closely by Halloween. But
Oh yeah, Halloween's amazing.
the original one. But both films, kind of started or at least revitalized a genre that was kind of dormant. They were very much, like Kickstarters for that fire. But yeah, do you want to talk about The Lighthouse?
Oh yeah. We'll get to The Lighthouse. Hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of Robert Egers here on Movieflex Double Features. Next up, we got 2019's The Lighthouse, starring Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, Seagull, the ocean, a mermaid.
A mermaid, yep.
There's actually 2 female characters. There's the mermaid, and then there's another. It's a very small cast. It's literally a 4-person cast. Oh no, it's the mermaid, and then it's the guy, the original Ephraim, his old boss. So there's 3 guys and 1 girl. Very small cast. Very, like, Bergman-esque, I would say, like, with the whole black and white. It's an island. It's basically a square shaped, like, what do you call it? The aspect ratio or whatever.
Yeah.
Highly, highly reference to myths, sea shanties. I feel like The Lighthouse was like part of the whole sea shanty revival thing. Something like a COVID movie, but it came out obviously right before COVID. it. I still liked it. It's still a 4 for me. Maybe a 3.5. I don't know. I love Robert Pattinson. I overrate all of his shit because he's my favorite. So like everything that
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson is gets a bonus half star. So it's definitely at least a 4. Willem Dafoe's amazing in it. But yeah, I'm dying to know what you think. What do you think of The Lighthouse?
Willem Dafoe does the best dirt and mouth acting I've ever seen.
I specifically made note of that because he started when they cut to the close up, you can literally see him like chewing on it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's amazing.
Yeah. So another meticulously well researched film. Egers says that a lot of times you think of like Willem Dafoe's character, right, where he's just like a salty sea brine. He sounds like a pirate. He's like, well, there's a lot of historical accounts that describe that's actually how he's like. It's funny because it's like a joke where people would do that, and be like, this is the pirate voice. This is funny. It's kind of silly. It's weird. No one really talks like this anymore.
Talks like Long John Silver. Yeah.
That's apparently how they actually talked, and he told. Yeah, he's like, that's apparently how they actually talked. There's a lot of historical records of, people meeting sailors and describing this weird way of them speaking.
Yeah.
Like that in different, and they kind of described it exactly. And he said, in anyone else's hands but Willem Dafoe's, this is another pull quote from Robert Egers, in anyone else's hands but Willem Dafoe, who's a master actor, it would seem like a comical bit. It would seem like a comedy routine. But I told Willem that I wanted it to be 100% serious. This is just how the guy talks. And he's like, and it comes through in the performance. I agree with that. Robert Pattinson, I always like to try and do his like, I can't get a goddamn thing, like the weird Boston accent. It's an actual Boston. It's not weird. It's just, weird to me. A Southern.
Oh no, it's very weird. People from Boston are weird. They should totally be ostracized and alienated.
Microprocessor.
Microprocessor. Yeah. Oh man, what the fuck? Like, oh god. When do we get to that movie? I have a friend. I just want to say this really bad. I have a friend who's like, God, that's the stupidest fucking movie I've ever seen, and I laugh because I get I get why he hates it. I get it.
I love it. It's just so stupid that he made Martin Sheen say microprocessor. Anyway,
yeah.
Off track, little tangent. So The Lighthouse, yes, definitely a almost remake of Persona. I was watching it, and having seen Persona now, I go, this is almost a remake of Persona. When
it's
I first saw
Persona, it's also like elements of Bergman's only horror film was Hour of the Wolf, which it's a Bergman horror, so but it's his own, it's called his only horror. It's not a straightforward horror, but yeah, that one, it's definitely elements of that as well. And yeah, like I said, if anyone's interested, A24 has a podcast that they put like an episode out once every 2 months or something. But there is an Ari Aster, Robert Eggers episode where they just bro down. There's also a PTA Safdie Brothers episode where they bro down. That's a common theme I realized on our podcast. Like, obviously last week was Dudes Rock. We got another. I mean, you could have put The Lighthouse with either of the movies from last week, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
So
because it's about guys being fucked up, right?
This one's very much like being like a former English major, right? To my everlasting shame, I have to say, no, it's fine. A lot of times, like literary criticism and film criticism is, there's two people who are the same sex, they're gay, right? Like that's kind of like that's fine, but because there's a lot of old literature that like Oscar Wilde read or whatever, who's and he loved this man more than literally anything else in the world, and you're like, yeah, he definitely did, like, and then he just couldn't say gay. But this is definitely one where I would say that there's a lot of like gay undertones with.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, Again, like you could have said that last week with Mikey and Nikki, but definitely this week with the Lighthouse, I would say like there's a lot of gay subtext. There's a lot of I think he said he
Yeah, I think it's
wanted.
more explicit. There's a lot of stuff like
Yeah, it is more text than subtext, but it's
I
because it's
read.
never outright stated. But like they almost kiss at one point, straight up.
Yeah, I read a post. They danced to with each other. I read a post where like
You're fond of me, lobster.
yeah, where
I've
he's
seen
like
it. Yet you're fond of me, lobster.
yeah. So there's a part where Robert Pattinson's jerking off to the mermaid, and there's a cutaway to the lighthouse, which is a phallic symbol, right? And then
Oh yeah, I read this.
apparently what they wanted to see his like
Yeah,
Robert Eggers wanted to have his penis in it, and they told him no, he couldn't do that. So Robert Pattinson was like, "Yeah, sure, show my penis like being
man.
erect, and then keep showing the lighthouse getting bigger and bigger." Essentially.
Yeah,
So there's a lot.
that's the footage I want to see. That's the cut.
Yes.
Fuck the air cut. I want to see the fucking penis cut.
So I think this movie. So I like it. I'll say it's a
Okay.
4.
Yeah.
It's definitely 4, 3.5, 4.
Mhm.
I would give it. It's funny because this is my like one of my friends, IRL friends' favorite. Like, this is his favorite Robert Eggers movie. He's like really into this movie.
Man,
Um,
I totally get it too because it like it's very dudes rock. It's very funny. Like there's a lot of farts. Like it's like I get it, man. I totally get it. But I also
it's not
get
just that.
why.
It's
What's that?
very literary. It's a very literary movie.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say we should say this one was co-written by Robert Eggers and his brother Max,
Yeah.
and it originally started as an adaptation of Edgar Allan's Poe the Lighthouse, but it's totally not an adaptation of that at all because that didn't work out. But they essentially just like took the idea of sailors in a lighthouse and made their like atmospheric horror, I guess would be a good name. And this might actually be a good time to like talk about this whole movement because we mentioned Ari Aster, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I would also throw Jordan Peele in there. Um, like I said, Midsommar won me over so much, but and like there are precedents for this. Like there was a movie last decade called The House of the Devil. It's the guy who made X, that movie.
Hmm.
Um, like his first movie, House of the Devil, I would say that's kind of like not quite A24 like elevated horror, but like close. It's like it's got that vintage like they put it. It was like put out on VHS and stuff, and
Oh, okay.
you could also go back to like Rosemary's Baby, obviously. I would say Rosemary's Baby is like the blueprint for all these movies.
Yeah.
Polanski in general. And but like you said, like they draw on modernist influences, Bergman, Tarkovsky, like my guys that I love. I feel like this is a movie made for me though, but
Yeah, which is interesting because I thought when you said we were going to be Siskel and Ebert right in this episode, I thought you meant you were going to say I don't like The Witch, but I love The Lighthouse because you
uh,
know spoiler alert a little bit like for the Northman too. The Lighthouse is my least favorite of his films.
hmm,
I still like it. It's still better than a majority of stuff that comes out. That's not
sure,
saying much, but I think one of the reasons is because we kind of touched on this a couple touched ago where I said it's kind of stupid because like movies aren't supposed to be figured out, like, right, they're not a puzzle for you to solve, um and everything like that. But I read this interview with him, because there's a lot of like critics have a hard time defining the genre of this film, right?
yeah,
Because it's not exactly horror, but it's not horror. It's not, one guy called it like a suspense thriller,
yeah,
right?
like
'Cause he says,
psychological thriller, psychological
yeah,
horror. I could
because
kind of see
it
that
comes.
maybe.
He's like, because it's more in line with like Silence of the Lambs or something along those
It,
lines, seven,
it,
something like that. With like straight up horror, and then some people called it
I would,
character study. So there's all these elements, right? These disparate
yeah,
elements, and it's kind of like what you said earlier about the witch, or not the witch, but like Robert Eggers as a whole. There's all these elements that kind of like mix and mingle, and you don't know if like maybe the film better than the sum of its parts, because there's Bergman,
Mm.
there's these elevated horror elements, there's all these different, there's Melville, like
Oh, big time, yeah.
Willem
Edgar Allan
Dafoe's
Poe.
characters, yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. There's a lot of like, there's even like Lovecraftian elements in the film,
Big time, yeah.
and mythical elements and all this stuff. But like, it's a bunch of elements, right?
Mm.
And this is the biggest problem that I have with the film, like as a whole, is I don't know if all those elements intermingle into something that's what, like, I don't know if it's better than, like you said, the sum of its parts.
Yeah, no, it totally, like, is there a single idea that pulls this all together? Does the rug pull the room together? Like it's kind of like that. It's like whereas like The Witch feels like it started with an idea and built off from that. This feels more like they had the ideas, and like I said, it's more of like, hey, I'm gonna present you with these elements, and you just kind of you come up with the idea, right? And again, that's
Yeah,
that's
and
that's one approach to uh being like what's the word that I'm looking for, like ambiguous, right?
yeah, I think though. So we were talking kind of like, I think you kind of used like the the thing that everyone's like, oh, I can't believe people say this all the time about everything, but it's like Lynchian in a way,
Yeah.
because of like the ambiguousness. But like the Lighthouse, almost. Now, I'm not saying that it did tip into this territory, right? I like I
Yeah.
said, I like the Lighthouse. I like it a lot. It's better than a lot of stuff, but the Lighthouse almost tipped into the territory of Lynch that I don't like, that some people seem to like. I don't
Okay.
like obscurity for obscurity's sake.
No.
And
Okay, yeah. I'm glad you brought
well,
this up. Yeah.
one second though. The only thing I was going to say is that the only reason, and again, you can, if you watch the film in a vacuum, like you can't really, like if you look up something about the film, like on this is our second viewing of or this is my second viewing of the film.
Yeah, same.
So, um, I did look up some stuff about it so we could talk about it. One of the things that Robert Egers said in an interview, that it's funny that this is my most well researched pod, but one of the things that Robert Egers said in an interview that kind of resonated with me, to where I go, okay, this is almost tips it over into that Lynchian category that I don't like, which is, he said that this is a movie that has a lot of questions that aren't meant to be answered.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's like a
exactly.
movie asks more questions than it gives answers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm totally glad you brought this up, right? Because I'm glad you brought up Lynch, because that's where I would draw a huge contrast. Because yeah, I actually think, like, I don't think Lynch has never been weird or obscure for the sake of being obscure. Like generally, like traditionally, you know, uh, movies have.
Disagree with that we have though. Like I do have to say
Oh,
that.
no, because like okay, because like okay, so like traditionally films have what they call the like thematic argument or whatever. Like they have a statement, they have something that they're trying to argue for, right? Or they have
Mhm.
some moral that they're trying to teach, right?
Yeah.
And um with The Lighthouse, I felt like it didn't have a thematic argument. It had all these disparate elements that weren't united by a cohesive argument. And the fact that he was saying like you make the meaning, you take away what it means. To me that always felt like a cop out. And like again, it felt like what you think, to me Robert Eggers is what you think Lynch is, but what Lynch actually isn't. Like to me Lynch has a very specific message. He has
Oh,
he's a very symbolic filmmaker, and I think
yeah.
I think he has specific arguments. And I think if anything, this is the movie where Eggers is the most like obscure for obscurity's sake. Because yeah, I agree. I was saying the same thing, right? Like where it's like it feels like he's being obscure and weird just for the sake of it, and just to be like mysterious and ambiguous. But instead, again, like his approach to ambiguity seems to be, I'm going to introduce all these disparate elements and let you take away your meaning. Whereas like with Lynch, it feels more like Lynch has a specific thing he wants to say in an argument. He just hides it in symbolism. And I think like I I want to get to Lynch because yeah, like
I do
yeah.
have to clarify though, and like I think it was presented terribly by me, and then I think we kind of ran with it. I don't think Lynch is like that's again just to kind of like get out in front of the argument, right? I don't think Lynch's entire filmography and even his entire obscurity like is like that. Like what I
Yeah,
was saying with the Lighthouse almost tipping it. What I meant was the Lynch, like the films of Lynch that I've seen almost I've seen every single one except for Inland Empire, right? I've seen all of Twin Peaks and everything like that. It's not like there's obscure stuff in Twin Peaks, there's obscure stuff in like all of his films, right? But
mm,
I'm not saying like his entire filmography and Lynch himself is like an obscure I don't even know how to say it, like a person who obscures things on purpose. What I'm saying is like my least favorite Lynch movies, right,
yeah,
are the ones that I think are intentionally obscure to their detriment, right? Which is what I was trying to say about the Lighthouse, right? And it's not like, again, it's not every single one of his films are like that, or Lynch himself is like that. But I think that there are a few of his films that are very much like obscure for obscure sake, essentially.
yeah. I mean, like to me, like uh,
It goes
I
beyond the symbolic is kind of what I mean, like, right? Like it's more like, oh, like like I've there's certain ones that I feel are he's intentionally obscuring something because it makes it more mysterious than maybe he intends, I guess would be a way of saying that. But that's, like I said, it's not his entire filmography.
no, yeah, I get it.
Like,
To
how I
me,
feel about Lynch. You know how many
yeah,
of Lynch's stuff I like.
yeah, no. It like to me, it comes down to Eraserhead. I like because I kind of felt used to feel this similar way, but like okay, so like Eraserhead, um, uh, you think about like okay, so drama is life at the extreme, right? Like
Mhm.
people like in extreme situations at extreme ends of the spectrum. Otherwise, why would we want to watch a movie about this, right? So you take that into mind. You take into mind the fact that when he was making Eraserhead, he was on the verge of having his first kid. And then you start to think of movies like, as I've said before, about dreams, like in terms of dreams and nightmares. What's the dream of this? What's the nightmare? So then you start to think of Eraserhead. Okay, it's just a movie about a guy who's afraid of having kids, right? And every situation is taken to the dramatic extreme, but in Lynch's version of that, right? So like the whole dinner with her parents thing, it's like, okay, I got a girl pregnant. I have to meet with her parents. What's the worst thing that could happen? That's how any writer would set up that scene. And that's how a
Mhm.
lot of scenes have been written. And it just so happens that in the Lynch version, his answer is like, oh, what if the chicken comes to life, you know? Or like, what if I have the kid and he's a fucking whatever? I don't even know. People don't even know what he used to make that baby. But like what if he's like a mutant or whatever, right? And so you're like, oh, okay, like that kind of like that makes Eraserhead like that. Okay, I feel like I get it, right?
Mhm.
And then so then I just kind of like take that mentality to his other movies, and like I said, I you know, there's explainer videos, there's all kinds of stuff. If that like if you want to have a literal meaning from it, I think it's there. I think um some people have a problem with like shrinking his ideas down into like simple ideas like oh having kids is like what's Eraserhead about? Oh, having kids is scary. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's just about it because he is a Eraserhead, right? He literally has the same hair and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that helped me like unlock Lynch kind of, but I could see how he's still kind of like we'll get to Lynch soon.
Yeah. Yes, we will. But yeah, so what anyway, Lighthouse, right? Back
Yeah.
on the Egers cast. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say is like essentially he gets into almost that territory of like obscure because I think there's like a very so what you were saying kind of like there's no or like we were saying, there's no answers, right? There's more questions than answers. I think there is like a story to this film. Like, again, the guy who I said, who's my IRL friend, who kind of like, is this his favorite Egers movie? It's one of his favorite movies. Like, him and I both, and then the friend that we saw with too, like our mutual friend, we kind of agreed that this is what the movie's about, right? Afterwards, we talked
Yeah.
about it. We said, this is what the movie's about. I think it's like, and that's one reading, right? You can have a bunch of different readings. I view it kind of like it's a remake of Persona. They're the same person, I think.
Mhm.
It's funny because Edgar says that it's based off a historical account where there was two lighthouse keepers. One was named Thomas, and the other one was named Thomas as well.
Yeah.
He's like, this actually kind of happened. There's parts of that, but I think there's like a strong argument that they're the same person. Right, and then there's like a element of like unreliable narration, unreliable because like the editing does confuse you, right? Like intentionally, because like there's a
Yeah.
part where
It oh, go ahead.
you can't really get a sense of where you are in the film or like what time period it is, like not what time period it is, but like how much time has passed within the film itself. Because like,
Mhm.
and the thing that like, I mean, he establishes it right away with there's a, don't kill a gull, he kills the seagull, and then the storm rolls in, and he's like, oh, I'll take if it gets worse, he's like, you need to ration. He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if it gets worse, I'll take it, you know, I'll take it out the divvy or whatever they call it, they'll boat out, and then we'll find someone. He's like, you've been saying that for weeks, and I've been telling you to ration for weeks. And he's like, no, it just started yesterday. And he's like, no, it hasn't. Like, how long have we been on this rock? And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, you don't know because you're going crazy, right?
Yeah, because you're fucked up.
Yeah, because you're getting drunk and everything. There's a lot of things, and then I mean, there's a part in it where even Edgar's like, in Willem Dafoe's mouth, he gives you like a bunch of like, this is what the movie's about. He's like, oh, you're going crazy, right? You think I killed my first whatever. Like, you don't know how long we've been on here, a month, a year. You could be dead. Like, could be the afterlife, and you're atoning for your sins. He's like, we could be the same person. Like, he gives off all these like,
Mhm.
because he knows he's going crazy and all this stuff. So yeah, there's different readings you can have and everything, but at the
Yeah, no,
same
like
time, no,
they're
go
like,
ahead.
oh no, yeah, like they're like, yeah, I definitely agree. There's definitely ideas at play, but like I said, there's what I feel like it lacks one because you can say like even okay, say they're the same person, okay, but like so what, right? Like what is you can't say it's the movie's about two people being the same. Like it's like what is he saying about that? Like what is he using that to express, right? Like what
What's like,
greater idea is he like? Is it just like sometimes guys can be gay or like you just like
yeah, I don't think there's I think that might stray into the and again like that's what I said. I think we agree on this movie more than we disagree. I think
yeah
that could stray because like it doesn't necessarily like the movie again doesn't necessarily have to be about something, right? You could just have like a reading of the film. It could just be vibes. Like,
yeah.
but I here's the thing. I like the movie, but I can definitely see why people don't like it. Specifically because, like I told you, and this is gonna like completely like all my credibility is gonna go down the drain with this. But I don't like Persona. Because I like.
It's like okay, I'll say like it's not the first like it's definitely not the first. It's not one of my favorite Bergmans. I love Bergman and it's like not my top five.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't help too because it's like super hyped up and everything. But like, if you were to say I don't like this movie at all, and I'd go fair enough. Like that's fair. Like that's fair. Like that's a
Yeah.
fair thing to say. Like I'm not. I would never like if you said you didn't like The Witch at all, I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't know if I can talk to you about movies or whatever. But like if you're like I don't like The Lighthouse at all, I go yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not for you.
yeah. It
But yeah, I think ultimately the last thing I kind of want to say about The Lighthouse because I don't have much to say about it, and I think that's one of the problems is that
mhm.
this leading up to my problem is that you're right. It does have a lot of it's a lot of parts, and then
Yeah.
you're left with you go, wow, like you walk out of the theater, especially when we walked out of the theater, we're like, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie, right? It's
Yeah.
different. It's pretty good. And then you like kind of left holding nothing. You're left holding like empty air.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's like um compared to a
Like
movie
not
we
even a
love,
vibe, really. That's the
compared
worst
to
part.
it's a fucked up vibe. And also like compared to a movie we both loved, right? Um we both love The Age of Innocence. Like you walk away from The Age of Innocence, you may not be able to articulate it perfectly or even like put it into words, but you know what that movie's about, right? Like you
Yeah.
can feel like you feel it, especially with that ending. Like you can feel it deep within your soul. You're just like, oh man, like even if someone asks you like what was that movie about, you could just be like, I don't know, but fuck society, you know?
Yeah, and like Mikey
The
and
man
Nikki
in
too.
distress. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like because if you think about it, Mikey and Nikki's about two dudes hanging out. You know what I mean? Like there's no
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
super deep meaning, but like you're left with something at the end. I mean, Jesus, like we waxed poetic about it last
But you,
week,
you,
but
you do get it. You're like, oh man, because it's that idea of like some people are so fucked up, but you're still friends with them. Like that,
yeah,
I get that. Like I get like that's something I can latch onto. Yeah.
yeah. So, final thought though. What my final thought is it's good. It's it's different, right? But also at the
Yeah.
same time, we should be critical of things that are unique to we don't
Yeah.
have
I
to
don't
love
want
them just because they're unique. But my
I don't want to overrate everything that isn't Marvel Disney. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
it's good. It's a
solid.
good it's
And
a
we should
solid,
say
yeah, exactly.
we should say I should say like both of our opinions are reflected by the box office. We both love The Witch. It made 40 million off of a $4 million budget, 10 times, right?
Mhm.
Both of us felt that the Lighthouse was okay, little, like off, like something wasn't quite right, and the box office reflected that. It was made for 11 million and it made 18 million, so didn't quite make back the investment. When you factor in marketing and stuff, certainly wasn't like the big, didn't make as much as The Witch. Um, and it kind of gets worse from there with his next movie. But yeah. Is that all? Is that all?
Yeah, that was it. That was the final thing I had to say about the Lighthouse.
All right. So with that, come to this final. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and put 3 movies in the title. Fuck it. Yes, we are Movieflex double features, but you know what? This week we did a triple feature. So we're
Well,
just
the double feature, here's the thing. It is a double feature in that and this is the first true double feature I did. I've been doing the double feature where it's I've been watching one movie a day, like one of the movies, digesting it a little bit, and then watching the other one. I actually
yeah
did do this with this one. It is a double feature in that The Witch and The Lighthouse are two movies that you can watch at home. You can have a double feature with it, and then you know what? If you're so inclined, right, you can get your ass off the couch, right? Get in your car, drive to your local Cineplex, support movies, and then see The Northman.
yeah. But
So
like
that's
also, but
yeah.
look. But if you want to stay home, it's okay because like it wasn't your decision for all movies to be projected and digitally. uh Look, like it total like again, I will die on this hill. I don't feel that bad for not going to the movies anymore because I realized like yeah, like back when they used to like literally be movies and like project on film, it was better. I'm sorry, it was just, I still remember it was better, it was good. And at the very least, I think people subconsciously are aware of the fact that they're getting ripped off. They're not watching movies, they're watching digital projections of movies. It's assimilation. This is like fucking Baudelaire. Who's the French philosopher that the Wachowskis are all into? Whatever.
Baudrillard.
Yeah. It's the same shit, right? Like it's not a movie, it's a simulation of a movie, right? It's a digital simulation. Like we used to have real movies, man. I don't know how else to say this, but like cuz I was at the movies and I was thinking this. I was like, "Man, I'm sitting here getting coughed on by COVID behind me and like Uncle COVID or whatever you want to call him, and like it's all this for fucking digital projection. You know what I mean? Like it's just a big ass 4K screen. Like it makes me feel like the Sex Pistols. Like, you ever feel like you've been ripped off? um, yeah, but I'm
This
sorry. I'm just defending my I'm just
you want to chill at the house, you want to watch a movie at the house, it's fine. I understand. I completely understand that
smoke a little
because
joint.
you're not. There's no fundamental difference between having a really nice TV and watching a Blu-ray slash
That's what
4K.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, or going to the movies is what you're saying. You want something. You want it on film. You want something.
Yeah.
You know exactly.
You
I understand. No, I get you. This is definitely so. This one's gonna be, I think, the Siskel and Ebert.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah. So let's get to it. Yeah.
yeah. So the Northman,
20
right?
yeah, 22 is the Northman, starring the Skarsgård with a big dick. Anya Taylor-Joy's in it, Bjork's in it. I'm just going off my dome. Willem Dafoe's in it, Nicole Kidman's amazing in it.
Ethan Hawke, dude.
Oh
Put
yeah,
some
Ethan
respect on the
Hawke.
name, bro.
Acting God, yeah. No, sorry. He's amazing. Yeah, I love him. I went to film school in Austin. Like, of course I love Ethan Hawke, you know what I'm saying? He's my
Yeah.
guy. I love him. But yeah, the Northman, gotta say it, made on a budget of 70 to 90 million, has made like 40 million so far. So maybe lost $100 million at this point.
Yeah, so
Uh
definitely for sure this is his most controversial film
Absolutely.
in so many ways.
Many, many ways. Yeah, we'll get
It's
to
his
that. Yeah.
most it's his most controversial film in so many ways. The it's been claimed as an alt-right love letter.
Yeah.
It's been,
Yeah.
like a film that's been talked about as being, there's like a toxic masculinity to it. It's controversial in that Egers himself has talked about this movie, how a lot of it was out of his hands. He had such a bad time making this movie. We talked about this last week that he's not sure if he's going to if he does something like this, it won't be either this high budget or it won't be, a studio project
He
or
may
anything
never
like
make a. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if a millennial will ever make $100 million movie that isn't Marvel or DC now. But
that. Exactly. And
well,
that's
like
good.
that. Or I was just gonna say, like, so we should say, like, the repercussions of this is, yeah, like, it's bad for non-IP stuff, non-Marvel stuff, non-Disney stuff. That the fact that it didn't make anything, it's bad for him personally. Like, he was gonna do the Nosferatu movie that got called off. We originally said that we thought it was because of Morbius, and it still might be. But I also think that, like, Hollywood has tracking numbers. I think they knew that this movie wasn't gonna do great.
Oh,
Uh,
fun fact about Nosferatu, real quick, just complete side tangent, really quick. He was going to make that movie before The
yeah,
Witch.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was going to be a second movie, and then he made The Lighthouse and The Northman because he couldn't get that movie made. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and so he was finally gonna make it, gets canceled. He's still doing a mini series on Rasputin, I believe.
Yeah.
Haven't really seen like news, but yeah, he doesn't have a movie in the yet. As of yet, he doesn't have a movie like announced. Like we said, he's a millennial. He's old elder millennial, but like this was the first like non-Marvel big budget thing given to like a millennial. Like, here's $100 million, man. Like, and it's such a huge, for like I said, his last budget was like 11 million. Now he goes up to 100 million, and it's not based on an IP. Like, everything nowadays is either based. It's not just about being based on an IP or a true story, but like there's a very small list of IPs that are actually valuable, right? Because technically, like, John Carter was an IP, but that didn't make shit for money, right? Because no one cares. Who gives a fuck about John Carter, right? No one knows who that is. But yeah, so this was like a non-IP thing, and just like, I have to wonder why it didn't connect with audiences. Like, obviously, I think the whole like white supremacist Nazi shit is insane. Like, Robert
Yeah,
Eggers is
that's
clear.
that's
Like like I should say, like, he's clearly not a white supremacist, but we both saw the tweets of like the guys who were like sick hailing or whatever at the Northman.
Yeah,
Like,
that's for kicks or whatever they say. The
yeah,
white
yeah,
that's
yeah.
for that's
But
not.
yeah, I
There's
think
no
all of that is bullshit.
if white supremacists latch on to Viking iconography, then that's something that they latch on to. It's not the Viking has no supremacist overtones. I feel like there's a lot of to be said about violence in the movie. Um, it's a lot about how violence is a cycle. There's vicious cycles of violence. How
Mm-hmm.
a culture that is so into violence and perpetrates violence and all this, how they can become desensitized to it. And it's not, just pointing something out may not necessarily be a critique of something, which is what people are fond of saying. But I think there's a very clear. It's very. I think people are so this sounds really rude and I'm going to come across as rude. I think people are so media illiterate that they
Mm-hmm.
can't if they see something on screen, they believe that it's an endorsement of said thing on screen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and there's a lot to say
That's
about
like
the
we talk about it a lot. That's Twitter brain.
yeah, it's kind
But
of
you know what? I will say this though, like going back to the whole like, what are you trying to say with this? Like, I mean, like I wouldn't make a movie in 2022 about Vikings. Like, not because I think Vikings are racist, but because I know that there are racist people who will be like, "Fuck yeah, right?" And I
racist
don't.
people latch on to anything though. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
I know that like you said you won't make a movie, but like we should be able to have Viking movies
We
without it
should. Yeah,
being
you're right. Yeah,
racist.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's
Absolutely.
also, I mean, there's the Viking TV show. This all kind of comes in the wake of Game of Thrones, right? Like,
Yeah,
um,
Vikings is a
because
very popular.
very
It's a
it's a
good
real
TV show.
life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
And
yeah, no, I think it's totally baseless. Like,
and
because like you
and just
said, like he's definitely not a white supremacist, and it's like he just wanted to make this cool movie.
yeah, and
Um,
also like we don't need like movies. Here's the thing. Like movies don't have to justify themselves like being made, right? Like I think that like even existing, like media itself doesn't
mhm,
have this like this thing where it's
sure,
like you can't like if I want to go and see a Viking movie, right? It doesn't necessarily like speak to like it doesn't explicitly say like violence is bad or like there's cyclical levels of violence or like this is pretty fucked up. Like if it doesn't explicitly say that, it doesn't have to like justify its own existence. Like art can be art, it can be aesthetic, it can be thematic, it can be vibes, it can be a lot of different things. And I think what like really like fucking I don't know, like what really like boils my blood is like it's a very like visually interesting movie, right? It's
yeah,
very like it is original, right? And that's something that like, we were just saying you can criticize original stuff, but like the problem is they're not criticizing the movie. They're criticizing like and I'm saying it's just like dumb brained people. They're criticizing like the political implications of a certain group of people, terrible people, but a certain group of people may be connecting with it to something that is completely like false, right? Like that's something that's it's a dumb way of viewing it's a dumb way of viewing art. I just have to say, it's a very
yeah.
dumb way, like that just kind of like going, oh well, and that's something like like
It's yeah,
friend of
Twitter
the
brain.
friend of the pod, Thought Haver talked about, at Thought Haver, he described like he said, I can understand why the Northman's baffling to people because like we're not like if we see violence on screen, like we're taught that it has to say something, right? Like there has to be either an explicit this is good or this is bad message because like our I mean that's just Your brain
No,
on American.
well, no, no, no. I think no, I don't think that it necessarily has to say violence is good or bad. I think the violence has to be in service of something, though, right? I think what turns people off is violence for the sake of violence, or like even, or you know what? I take that back. If he was to say like violence is good, violence is natural, violence is like part of the natural cycle, I would have respected it more. But he doesn't really like, I mean, I don't care what he says about violence. Like that, the violence didn't really register with me, like because I'm very used to it, like very desensitized to it. I but I have, I understand, like a lot of people criticize stuff where it's like what is um the violence doesn't necessarily has to be labeled as good or bad, but it's like, does it serve some like, is it justified, I guess, is what I'm trying to
But
say.
like, I think that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm giving the movie too much credit. But I think that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's violence is it justified? Right? Like, there's no.
Yeah.
Is it in service of something? Like Amleth, is the best at violence, and he's very good at violence in the beginning, but he's desensitized to it too. He's rambling around like everyone's getting burned and killed and everything, and he's very
Yeah.
desensitized to it. And there's part of like the mythical reason, but also like I just think that's because it like permeates their culture, right? Because that's like it's realistic. There's like Vikings were fucking brutal, you know.
Like I said, like the I guess the violence just didn't register with me because like I said, like I don't know, I think the whole argument over what, like, it's such an antiquated thing. Okay, I'll talk about it. Like, all right, so the thing with the Joker, right? The movie, when it came out, like, I thought it was so insane that there was all of these like supposedly like liberal progressive people who were like reverting back to these like ancient conservative arguments that were like basically movies cause violence, right?
Yeah,
So they
which is
because they
insane.
yeah, and it's such an old conservative idea, and it's like they were latching onto it. And of course the irony is that like Joker ended up being more of a Bernie bro than anything, which of course what do liberals hate more than conservative? A Bernie bro, right? Because they call him out from a leftist perspective, whatever. So I thought that was absolutely insane. That's why I that's one of my like hot takes is I love the Joker. Like I will defend that movie. Because like I said, it totally, because it wasn't what people said it was. So, but
Yeah,
ultimately, what I'm saying is like, but that whole idea of like, oh, movies cause violence, I have zero interest in it. It doesn't even register with me. Maybe the Northman was saying something about it that I just didn't pick up on, because like I said, because to me the violence is like, you know I say like what was it servicing, but ultimately it was servicing the story, right? Like I don't think the scene with the game the where they're playing the game or whatever,
mhm.
I don't, he beats the guy because the guy like accidentally almost kills his brother, and then he beats the guy. I like, to me that didn't register as like, oh, how violent is this? I just thought like, oh yeah, like that's how probably that would have played out. That's the most dramatic way to play it out, to express, you know, power, I guess.
Yeah,
So yeah, I didn't really have any I guess I didn't really have a problem with that aspect of it. Um I mean, I thought Anya Taylor-Joy's character was probably like the most sympathetic, I guess, and likable.
well,
Um,
yeah. She's a Rus, right? She becomes a slave in
yeah.
the film. She goes so Amleth's uncle, right? Like you said, it's Hamlet.
Hmm.
Um, he kills his brother, who's the king. The prince flees. There's the famous trailer line, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he steals his mom. And then, Anya Taylor Joy she plays a Rus witch. She's a Wiccan
Olga.
person. Olga. Yeah. And she teams up. There's a great part in the movie where she's like talking about, hey, like, you're physical, you can destroy men's bodies, I can break their minds. Let's kind of team up and do this thing, And yeah, she's great. She's probably, like you said, she's the most sympathetic character. Um, Amleth, I think ultimately, like, if you want to say like what it's about, it's that Amleth is stuck in this cycle of violence, right? That he is very similar to like the witch in this regard for me. Um, it's obviously not as like I don't think it's as tuned in as the witch,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's about being stuck in this societal right, in a society where you're expected to do something. I mean, he makes an oath he can't break, right? Or he thinks he
Yeah.
can't break. He does it in the service of, because like, I mean, Vikings believe that like if you don't die in battle, you're not going to Valhalla, you go to like hell, right? And hell can be good or bad, but like, ultimately for a warrior, if you're not in Valhalla, like you suck, essentially.
Yeah.
But like to get to Valhalla, you have to die in battle. You have to die a glorious warrior's death, right? And there's a lot of things in my opinion that are about violence and how it begets and how it starts and how it's cyclical and Ethan Hawke's in it, Willem Dafoe's in it. There's some magic and stuff, and I think all are like just if I were to rate the movie, I loved it, like I really did. That's where I think you and I kind of disagree on it. I really loved it. It was my second favorite Egers movie. I didn't love it as much as The Witch. I would say it's like 4 to 4.25. I'm not sure I'd even give it like a 4.5, but it's like it's a really good like I think aesthetically it's a very great movie. There's a lot of interesting ideas, like the way that like the family tree is shown in the movie, the way that the Valkyries are shown in the movie. There's kind of like I really like too that like this one more so than The Witch, because The Witch is pretty like explicitly magical, right? Because I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's real, but like in this movie, there's a lot of like the magic and stuff could be real, but it's also could be belief, and it could be a lot of things, right? And
Yeah.
and and I do like that aspect of it where it's like this kind of like magical but like hyper violent. It's like dark fantasy, but it's also like just dark, like historical film. There's literally a Dark Souls boss fight in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I think
Yeah.
everyone talked about that a lot. Willem Dafoe's great in it. Ethan Hawke gets on all fours and barks like a dog. Robert Eggers has a great quote, and he's like, they're like, "How'd you get Ethan to do that?" He's like, "Well, I told Willem to do it, and if the great actor he just loves Willem Dafoe. He's like, if the great actor Willem Dafoe gets on the ground and barks on all fours and tells you to bark, you're gonna bark too," which is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, Anya's great in it. She does like we said, and Edgar says she's got this ethereal quality yet grounded. She tunes into like Gaia, like the Earth Mother, a lot for her magic or her potions or whatever she does in the movie. But all that said, sorry, I just went like super long, but that's the reason that I like the movie a lot. I think all those things. I think unlike the Lighthouse, all those things do come together to make something that's as good as the sum of its parts.
No, yeah,
Um,
I definitely think it's more successful than the Lighthouse for sure. I mean,
yeah,
it's so I would say maybe I would say maybe because like I said, I change my scores a lot, so I would probably put maybe Lighthouse at 3.5 and this at a 4.
yeah, I think okay. So we did end up agreeing. I
Yeah,
know
so
that like
it's a similar range. Like I said, it's the same range as Scorsese. It's not an insult. It's just like
yeah, and
yeah,
and I have to say, I think this and the Lighthouse like really do more so than the Witch. I think these two come down to more what is your preference with regards to like I don't want to say avant garde. Like that sounds really pretentious, but like more like everything's an indie film now, but more like indie film, right? Like thought
Yeah,
process, like indie film brain. It's like,
I mean, I,
like I
I like
said,
the, I like the fact that it was a pretty straight ahead revenge movie because like that appeals to me. That's very like genre movie. That's very like Western. Like I like that aspect of it. I thought parts of the story could have been tighter, like
yeah,
because he keeps coming back to kill people. It's like why don't you just go kill like it? Because they make it to where you can only use the sword
at night.
during at night unless he's at the gates of hell and I mean it's okay and stuff. Maybe if I saw it again, um like I like the stuff with Bjork. I thought Nicole Kidman was really good, but that was also
Oh,
a thing of
he's
like I as soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, oh man, the mom's in on it. Like I don't.
yeah, yeah.
uh,
I have to say with Nicole Kidman, this is so rude, but I kind of agree with her take. There's a mutual who told me, she DM'd me to tell me that she was like, I loved, she's like a very artsy person. She's like, I loved very much the Northman, and I said like, what's up, like tell me what you liked about it essentially. And she said, oh, like I liked the movie because she's like, I like the movie a lot. She's like, and then one of the reasons is because I think, again, this is rude, but I agree. She's like, Nicole Kidman's had a lot of work done. And she's like, I think they used her incredibly well. Like, because there's a part in
yeah,
the
the
movie,
lighting was pretty great.
there's a part in the movie where, I mean, Nicole Kidman does something absolutely gross, and you should be grossed out by it. And
Mhm.
everyone in my theater said collectively they all go ew when it happens. And I think casting Nicole Kidman kind of helps that because she has like an ethereal quality too. Like I
Yeah,
said, she doesn't seem like she belongs there, which is perfect for her character. Ultimately.
yeah,
But long story long, what I'm trying to say is like, so I think the reason why, because there's a big kind of divide. A lot of people agree that The Witch is great. A lot of people don't. They're either the Northmen, right? And they're kind of like, from everyone I'm talking to, right? My own little sphere.
hmm
Um, and I think like my IRL friend who really liked The White House, like it's one of his favorite movies, didn't like The Northman. He's like, I don't dig it, but I think you'll dig it, right?
yeah,
And I think it's because they're both these films that aren't as like cohesively whole as The Witch, right? They're not as like, like I guess perfect is the bad way to describe it. They're not as like perfect as The Witch. And one of the films, The Lighthouse, is very literary. It's very like metaphysical. It's vibes, but it's like metaphysical, literary, mythological vibes. Whereas this one is more aesthetic, I think. Like the Northman's not necessarily. I mean, it's like a straightforward, like you said, straightforward revenge story. There's not much like depth with
yeah,
regard to like the themes and everything, but it's very vibe heavy, and it's very like aesthetically like you know in your like face like when you're watching it. And that's, I think those are the two takeaways, right? It's like if fuck with the literary, metaphysical, whatever, you might like The Lighthouse more than this. But if you fuck with like the more aesthetic,
yeah.
side of it, then you'll fuck more with the Northman. And I definitely like the Northman a lot, like more than the Lighthouse. So
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like the more ethereal qualities. I like the more artistic aspects of it, but ultimately, like, it is like a movie that was made for like 100. Right? It's like you have
yeah,
to like appeal to a lot of people, I guess. I think ultimately what it comes down to for me is like I just don't know if Skarsgård was very compelling, like as a lead. Like
that's
there were
fair.
times like he was great when he was playing the animalistic like warrior. He was great at you know that stuff, but there were times when he was like just the slave that I thought you know, I feel like I should have empathized with him more. You know, he's a slave, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think that's an like. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna like
oh no, that's it. Yeah.
yeah. I was just gonna think like I don't know. Like he's very much. I think he's a insert really in the story.
Mhm.
Like Skarsgård, very much so. I think he's just kind of like he's kind of like your in to like he's like I don't know. He's like the bus driver. I guess like he's not very compelling, but he's
Yeah,
like
he just
there to
feels like
move
the
the.
guy that like you're like, oh okay, like I'll take this ride with you, but
Honestly, Anya Taylor Joy is the one that you're rooting for the entire movie. Like you want,
yeah,
I feel like I want Amleth to succeed because succeed because I think like if he succeeds, then Anya Taylor Joy will. You know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she definitely like grounds the film because like he's also like, I mean, he's not the easiest protagonist to empathize with because he is like a very animalistic Viking. He is like he's a guy who can kill someone with his bare hands, right?
Yeah.
I can't really relate to that. You know, I think people can relate more to like Anya Taylor Joy's character, someone who's like around it, maybe.
Yeah. And she's very, very spiritual. Very. She's got a lot of qualities that she has the qualities he lacks, right? She has she has all the main character
Mhm.
qualities. She's feisty, right? And like in a
Yeah,
situation
she's
where
dynamic. She's very like you know what she wants, you know what she fears. Like, whereas with him, it's more of like kind of a guess.
yeah, and he's very much like I said, just kind of there to fulfill like he's got like a prophecy. He's like he's very mythical hero in the sense that like he's boring that he's just like fulfilling the gods or the Norns in this case
Yeah,
will, right? Like Bjork, she's a Norn and she kind of tells him what to do and then he does exactly
yeah.
everything and like the only thing that like causes him pause is Anya Taylor Joy, right?
Mhm.
I think she's definitely the most compelling part of the
Yeah,
film.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, unless you have anything to say, I was just gonna say my final thoughts were, it's good. Everyone should go see it. Actually,
Yeah.
it's my favorite movie this year that I've seen. It's not my favorite theater experience, I have to say. It is my favorite movie that I've seen this year.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, go see it.
Yeah,
It's good.
like I said, I wish like an artsy film like this would have made more money. Uh, I'm more just trying to figure out why it didn't connect with more people. It ultimately could come down to just like it wasn't marketed well enough. Like you said, it was kind of taken out of his hands as well. So it's maybe not even his complete vision. So I don't even hold it all off on him, you know what I mean? Because like you said, like it's it was the studio fucked with it basically. He didn't have like complete control, right?
Yeah, it's a movie for I think it's definitely a movie that's like niche, right?
Yeah.
Like an artsy action Viking revenge epic, right? Which is like, why would you spend 100 million on that?
Yeah, I know,
Like,
it's
I don't know,
insane. Yeah, like but
I
cuz
think it's like,
he had to make at least like 150, 200 to break even. And
yeah,
you're like,
there's
well
no
like
way that movie's making that.
yeah, I mean it's not like fuck dude, I it sucks that we live in this world, but yeah, I would, you know, ultimately that movie's not going to make that much money, man. Like
There's no, I mean, the word of mouth could be incredible, and because it's R, and
yeah.
because you have people who have a distaste already for like non-baby PG-13 fucking Marvel Disney violence,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? If you have like grown ass like 40-year-olds who can't watch anything unless it's Star Wars, no, like there's not gonna be like this is definitely film nerd film Twitter movie. Like
It feels
I'm
it does feel very niche. So it's like why did it have such a big budget? Cuz
that's
also
what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And they're gonna take the wrong lessons from it instead of going like maybe we shouldn't have
Mhm.
given them this like amount of money. It's awesome that they did, like that's incredible. But like they're gonna take the wrong lessons for it. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, nothing new under the sun can be made. Like it's got to be
Oh yeah,
IP.
it's all gonna be either IP. It's gonna be guys who are like over 50. It's gonna be or people who just, you know, whatever. I don't know. someone else.
Yeah, and then it also might be hard for him to find. I think the worst part about it is it might be hard for him to find funding for whatever he's trying to do
Oh yeah,
next.
I mean, the thing is, like, it kept going up. His budgets kept going up, which seems like a natural progression. But like, ultimately, it's like, you made a really amazing movie for $4 million. You can do it again, but I think at some point people get used to like having all this money. They get used to have the big production, and so they're
Yeah,
like, oh, I need $100 million to make a movie. Like, I'm sure he could get $5 million to make a movie, you know. But
yeah, I'm sure he could.
who
I'm
knows?
sure he could
Who,
get
who
it.
knows if he wants 5 million or if he wants 100 million?
Yeah, I think also those. I'm really worried too, because like I said, I really like the movie. I don't want it to be his last movie. I really like him as a filmmaker, and like the thing that I'm mainly worried about though is like I hope that he's not burnt out on this process either, because I like him as a filmmaker. Um,
I can
and
definitely see him as a guy who just goes to TV and does that forever, like
yeah,
Sean Valley.
yeah, it sucks, dude. TV
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, yeah. No, that's like the big like. I mean, as a writer, people are like, dude, why don't you try to make TV, dude? TV's like TV's king,
Fucking TV
man.
sucks.
Everyone has a TV show, and it's like, man, it's not the fucking same. It's not TV's not movies, man.
Yeah, TV sucks, dude.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's woo. Yeah, but yeah. Final thoughts. Final thoughts. Like I said, this would probably actually, yeah, like I said, Lighthouse would probably be my 3.5. This would be my 4, which would be my 4.5, maybe 5 actually. But yeah, we both love this movie. Is that the end? Are we done with Egers now?
Yeah, just final thoughts on Eggers, I think.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, I think he's good. I think he's really good. I think he's one of the better new filmmakers, um, to come out in recent memory. I hope he's able to make more movies. I hope he finally does his passion project, which I don't know why he wants to make. I told you like kind of a thing of why he might make the Nosferatu movie. I hope he gets to make the Nosferatu movie. I just like
Wasn't it Defoe who played Nosferatu in the '90s movie?
probably I don't know,
There was a '90s movie.
but
Not sure which one.
Anya Taylor Joy is my favorite.
Oh no, wait, go ahead.
Anya Taylor Joy and Robert Eggers are my favorite actor director combo. I like how he's just like I'm gonna cast her as like these like
Mhm.
weird people. She really likes him. She really I think she really likes his scripts too. You know,
Oh
so
yeah. No, I mean she'll go on. She'll be fine. It's
she
more him
already
I'm
is. I mean,
worried
she got the
about.
Queen's
Yeah.
Gambit. She got the Queen's Gambit. I just like them as a combo too. I think he
Mhm.
knows how to use her extremely well.
For sure.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's
and
my final thoughts though.
Shadow the Vampire. It's a 2000s movie. It stars Willem Dafoe as Count Orlok, who I think is like the Nosferatu guy. So yeah, Willem Dafoe has played Nosferatu already. John Malkovich was also in that movie. He played the director of Nosferatu. Because it's like a movie about the making of the movie, but he also has to be a real guy or something. Shadow the Vampire, check it out. Um, yeah. Oh, all corrections from last week. The reason why Elliot Gould has been photographed with Barbara Streisand so many times is because they were married. Also, George Siegel did not play Rachel's dad in Friends. The reason I got him mixed up, it was an old guy who kind of looked like him, but George Siegel did. He was in a '90s sitcom, but it wasn't Friends. It was Just Shoot Me, and he played David Spade's boss. Uh,
Gotcha.
and he also is the grandfather on the Goldbergs. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Nice. So, do you want to
Rest
go ahead and
rest
tell
in
us?
peace. He died last year as well. Yeah. So next week. Next week's going to be special. It's going to be different. For the first time ever, we're going to have a guest on. Our friend Thought Haver Chase. He's going to be on here. He's got a double feature for us. We're going to have him on. We're going to have him discussing stuff. How do you feel about having a guest?
I'm very interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
For sure. Also, these two movies we haven't seen. Neither of us have seen.
Neither
So
of us have seen them. Neither of us have even really heard about them. So yeah, next week, double feature. We're gonna start with 1989's Society, a body horror film directed by Brian Usna. Like I said, looks super interesting. I'm very excited to see it. Look it up. Don't look it up. Just go watch it. I'm trying not to like look into these movies before I watch them. I'm just going to watch them. Then our second film will be 1969's Z, directed by Costas Gravis. It's Algerian French, a political assassination. How do you feel?
I'm feeling good, dude. I'm very interested in seeing two movies because, like, you've seen more movies than I have. Like me and I've talked about it. But I'm very interested to see two movies that like we haven't seen before and have a guest who's seen them, who has picked them based off of themes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really interesting. Do you want to also go ahead and say just because people might want to catch up? Do you want to say what your picks are too, just in case people want to catch up with it?
Okay. Yeah. So, like we said, this coming episode, the next episode, we're gonna have a guest. Like I said, he's a friend from the group chat. He's a very cool guy. Like, I totally trust in his picks. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. If not, we can just attack him on podcasts and we can double team him and be mean to him. I'm just kidding. But after that, we will be doing a couple of my picks. This is gonna be a little different because basically, in 2 weeks, when it's my picks, the theme will be a guy who we both love, a guy who is very controversial, who apparently we are going to fight about. The theme will be David Lynch. David Flinch. That's right. David Lynch. But yeah, so we're going to do David Lynch in 2 weeks. We're going to do Fire Walk with Me. And we're going to pair that with And Don't Hate Me. But technically, it's not a movie. Technically, we're doing episode 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return. That'll be our double feature for 2 weeks from now. How do you feel about that?
It's going to be great. The reason I wanted you to go ahead and say them is because there are some completionists out there, me, who decided to go ahead and rewatch the entirety of Twin Peaks. So we wanted to give you guys 2 weeks to kind of, if you wanted to do that. We're not discussing. We'll discuss Twin Peaks as like a larger thing.
Yeah. Basically, in 2 weeks, we're gonna do David Lynch. If you want to rewatch original Twin Peaks, we're gonna be rewatching it. I'll be rewatching it. Like, we're gonna get into Twin Peaks as a whole, The Return and the original, and Fire Walk with Me. We're using the double feature of episode 8 and Fire Walk with Me just as like an excuse to talk about David Lynch.
It's gonna be a change of pace, definitely. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening this week to the Robert Egers cast. Like we said, it was a double feature that you can turn into a triple feature if you would like. So much A Night at the Movies. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you. Have a good one.